remember when I was graduating from college, I said to myself that I wanted either to be a lawyer or a university professor. After finishing military service, I decided that maybe being a lawyer would be the way to go, because by then we had 2 children. And I realized that life was complicated and expensive, and that maybe being a lawyer would be more suitable to support that than being a university professor.
It was also one of those mystery books you used to read about lawyers.
Well, that's true.
I was at lunch with my dad today, and someone walked by and said, "Hello, Mayor," and of course my dad greeted him back, and there's just a lot of warmth and reciprocity and respect, and it's wonderful the sort of that relationship and legacy in the city. That's, I think, the impact and that my parents have had in the community, and the community has had on my parents, right? It goes both ways, this community means everything to my parents, and I think that's maybe the thing to emphasize to the city and the people who live here is how grateful they are for that sort of love and support and friendship through the years.
I think they feel it. They feel the love in the community all the time that they go out into the community to an event, as you're saying, "Mr. Mayor, how are you? Nice to see you again." They speak to my mom, my dad. "You've done so many wonderful things in the community," and it's obvious to them always. And my dad has commented so many times, it's such an honor to hear these such beautiful comments. And I can't even say the number of times that people have come up to me and said, "Oh, we love your father," or, "Oh, we love your mother. Your mother has done so much for this community." And they know, they feel it, and so they're committed to the community, but they feel the love from the community at the same time.
And that love and support just has, it's sort of created all these downstream success stories, and I think we're all better parents because of you, and we're better work supervisors and bosses at work because of you, and we're better human beings, we're better stewards in the community because of you.
Thank you. I'm gonna cry. For everything that they modeled for us, for being the parents that they've been. We have a really strong family, and that's thanks to them.
Well, I think we moved to Pasadena, really thought this was, once we got here and became more acquainted with the community, really thought it was quite a lovely community. We didn't understand why they would want to be taking down all these buildings in the Civic Center, particularly. So they were just sort of a group of us that kind of met, and I can't even identify how it is that we did meet, but we all felt, why are they doing this? And in those days, there was just a different group of people kind of running the city. And so we said, well, wait a minute, let's stop and think about this. So we had a big battle over the Plaza Pasadena, which is now the Paseo. And we lost that battle, but as a friend of mine said at the time, you won the war because you at least took the message of Pasadena heritage out into the community, and a lot of people were sympathetic to our message. The neighborhood association was particularly important. And many people were involved with the neighborhood association in their community, in whatever area they lived in. And in fact, at one point, there were some 92 neighborhood associations in Pasadena. They didn't all meet on a regular basis, but they were there if there was something that came up in the neighborhood that they needed to come together on. But we were both involved in the neighborhood association, Bill even more than I, and so that that was one organization. I was involved in those days in the junior league as well. And I think there were other neighborhood associations, and we were both involved with PTA for the schools and things like that.
I would say that participation at the local level in our neighborhood association was the foundation for my becoming more active in the community. When we first came to Pasadena, a friend in my law firm was on that same board, on the board of West Pasadena Residents Association. And he asked me to serve on a committee, attend a meeting, go on the board, and all of a sudden I found myself quite active with WPRA, and I became the president of it at some point in time. It was a chance to contribute to a community that met the needs of lots of people and which protected the assets that we had, the architectural assets. It was a way to build the community and to preserve the community so that it got better over time, but didn't lose what it had. I tried to be a good listener, and so if people had concerns or had suggestions, I would start by listening to what those suggestions and thoughts were. And people enjoy being listened to. I think that was a major factor in my success in interacting with the community over time.
An immense sense of respect and nobility and doing the right thing at the right time and being polite to people, being gracious. My dad was from the Midwest, and he comes with very Midwestern values of caring about others and a simpler life and people being important. And so the whole part of giving back into the community and respecting others and listening to others, I think, has always been really, really important.
Part of it is to interact with people, to talk about their concerns, to think about the problems that they've identified and what the solutions might be. And then over time, developing approaches to the concerns that people might have about the city at that point in time, to develop approaches that were workable to as many people as possible.
Dad worked full-time as a lawyer, long, long hours. He left the house very early in the morning because he wanted to beat the traffic. And Friday night, we would often go out to dinner, to Mahari's often, and we would get home, and my dad's city council packet would be on the front porch. And he would pick it up and take it in and open it and immediately start distributing everything out on the dining room table. And he would spend the weekend looking at all of those papers, reading and processing. And we would say to him, "Dad, why are you doing this? You just finished a full-time job during the week and now you have the whole weekend to do this." Because he would be writing documents and taking notes and interviewing people and meeting people. And he was, it was all about commitment. It was about hard work. It was making a difference. It was having impact, and he loved it. It was his passion, and he just needed to do that.
And it was, what the policy issues were and what the controversies were and how the meetings had gone and what the next steps were. And it was, sort of politics 101, but not in the sort of the cynical politics, but it's really about how do we move these things forward on behalf of the community, as my brother suggested. I mean, their commitment to the city and to the community, that was just a top priority for them in addition to our family.
What I loved about my parents is that they were just always very, very focused on on community and not individual achievements, but how do we create a collective benefit for all of the community. And of course they were involved, they had their hands in lots of different tasks and volunteer opportunities and commissions and different governing bodies, and I think it was an amazing experience and one that I will always cherish.
Both of us have been active in Pasadena in community activities and school activities in our home and in our work. So it was just a matter of, I think Steve Madison, the council member, says that if you want to get something done, find a busy person.
But I think in your day as mayor, there were lots of opportunities to have dialogue and have meetings and compare thoughts and have conversations, kind of a sit around the table feel, which I don't quite feel today, and I sort of miss, because it was the neighborhood associations were more active then, and so there was more there were more conversations going on, so we heard from more people, right. And I think it's healthy for the community to have those opportunities. I think that was one of the strong points in your era, and the city staff were very open to meeting with people and having extra meetings to explain what was going on this project or that project. So that's helpful and thoughtful.
Building a community that is welcoming to people, and not only the people from one neighborhood of the city, but from the entire city, was important to me, to share opportunity and share the enjoyment of living together and helping one another was something that was important to me, and I wanted to encourage people to be involved on that basis.
You also worked really closely with the other members of the council. I think that was crucial. And then you also worked very well with the staff. You were always patient and happy to help, and they were happy in return to help you. And I think everything ran so much more smoothly with that kind of atmosphere.
They were very supportive and empowering to pursue our interests. And I think when you look at the four siblings, we have chosen very diverse paths, very diverse career journeys. But I think there are a lot of common threads, although on paper they're quite different. I think they're actually not as different because we're all a product of that upbringing, albeit at different times and different eras. And for me, I always felt supported and empowered and had a sense of independence and autonomy. And that even if some of my ideas were, a little unusual or weren't mainstream, for example, right out of college, I became a police officer. We have no law enforcement in our family. That just wasn't a typical career path. And although my mom was a little worried about the safety component, as a mother might worry, my parents were both very supportive and, really believed that as long as I believed in that effort and that I was, all in and I was, committed to it, that they believed in it as well, even though it was kind of somewhat of an unusual path. And I think for all of us, we got this sense. My mom would make some comment like, you can do whatever you want. We want all four of you to do whatever you want, choose whatever you want, pursue whatever you want, as long as it's sort of legal and ethical and safe. Those sorts of basic values, which we all understood. But other than that, they empowered us to be independent thinkers and to pursue our career in a way that was thoughtful. And ultimately, I think the common thread in all of our careers is public service and advocacy work for people, and thinking about a collective good, not an individual good. And that's always the theme I come back to with my parents, is how do we build up those around us? How do we, win with humility? How do we lose with class? But how do we work well with people? And those are some of the key themes that really are meaningful to me.
From my point of view, local politics is very important because it so directly affects the quality of life that we have. For Pasadena's willingness to involve people in the community and ask them to help build Pasadena, that's a high priority from my point of view.
Working agreements and among neighborhood associations, they work together. There were a lot of, and there was even an inter-neighborhood association in those days that used to meet, sort of representing all of the neighborhood associations and trying to keep everybody informed. It was great.
My service for 2 years as mayor in the 1980s, when I was serving as a council member from Southwest Pasadena. Being mayor in those days was routine because the assignment rotated from person to person. When I finished that 2-year period as mayor, I once again became a private citizen, and it was only 15 years later when the voters had approved a mayoral position elected by the people that I considered throwing my hat in the ring. And friends in the community came to me and said, "You should run for mayor." It came at a time in my career that allowed me the free time to campaign and ultimately to serve as mayor. I always enjoyed the opportunity to serve the public, to be responsive to their concerns, and to try, together with them, to build a more congenial community for us all.
It's not too different from a lot of other people's stories, and that is we met on a blind date. So, yeah, we met. We were in college, and we met. I was at my cousin's house, and a group of us went out. That's when we met. So, you want to add anything to that?
No.
The first time I went overseas when I was 15, when I lived in Rome for a semester, and I did just absolutely fall in love with that city and those people. And I didn't really think about the built environment that much. I was much more interested in all the young people in the neighborhood because there were a lot of them. And they were all wonderfully fun and gracious. But it was going in, my interest in buildings and the history, etc. I was a history major in college, and I'd always liked history even growing up. We were married in San Francisco, which was my home, and then we immediately left and went overseas because Bill was doing his military ROTC program. And we went to Morocco. We lived in Casablanca for 2 years. He lived there for 2 years. I lived there for 1.5 years. And then, and we loved it. And we had our first child there. I think both of us we really think traveling and living overseas is a wonderful opportunity. We think maybe our 2 daughters learned it too well. I'm teasing, because they ended up, of course, in Spain. And Janine, our daughter, who just came home after 35 years, and our other daughter is still there.
So Michelle lives in San Sebastian, Spain. That's the Basque Country in northern Spain, and she has been there for 35 years. Or more, and she's there with her partner Jenny and 2 sons. And this summer, she's taking, she typically takes a break from teaching and is pursuing an opportunity with a conservation organization in Spain that is working on a project that's, I think, taking hold and expanding in Spain, but also other countries in Europe, called rewilding. And so she's working with people to, sort of reimagine the landscape and trees, ecosystems, species that have been there historically, maybe had been sort of, extinguished or that are now being brought back in to sort of help heal landscapes, but also in a manner that embraces the human communities there too. And she's super excited by that. She's working with, I think, what's the oldest horse on the Przewalski horse, which is in Europe still. They were almost lost to extinction and are now in recovery and working with other critters and ecosystems and systems there.
We've been together about 62 years.
Yeah.
I would say once again that it's listening to one another. What I found in dealing with people, both in the political arena and at home, approaches to problems are more acceptable to persons who have had the opportunity to express for themselves what was needed or why they were unhappy. And so even if we weren't able to achieve a solution that was perfect from each person's point of view, each of us felt listened to and understood.
We also looked for compromises and ways to sort it out and make do. You know, we didn't always agree. Certainly when Bill was in public office too, we didn't always agree on different issues, but we just always let each other have their own path to go and respect it.
Listening.
No, I would say listening, I think, is crucial. And looking for compromises, I think, is crucial as well. And I guess I've always enjoyed that I think both of us feel a little independent, you know, and that sort of, I think that's a healthy way to feel in a close relationship. I think that we've always tried very hard to be very straightforward and honest, and I think we've tried to do that with our children all along as well, and I think that's crucial.
I remember hearing my parents discuss things over dinner about, you know, maybe there was some negotiation going on and there was an ethical component of someone had talked to someone, behind the scenes, and my mom called that out immediately, like, that is absolutely inappropriate. You can't do that. And everything that needs to be done, regardless of what the cause is, regardless of what the initiative is, it has to be done under a tight set of ethics and an expectation of those sorts of rules of engagement, even in tough negotiations related to the city or the restoration of an old building or trying to get funding for a bridge or whatever the number of the many causes that my mom was involved in. Everything always had to be done in this tight arrangement of ethics and commitment to ethics, and whether it was ethics and respect and inclusiveness and all that. Those are some of the values that I just observed, and although, as some of my siblings have mentioned, maybe it wasn't outwardly stated, but it was so clear the way that we need to behave. It was so clear that we needed to be open to diverse views, open to other people's viewpoints, and that different perspectives was actually a positive.
I remember my dad repeatedly saying, talking about options. It's good to have options, and it wasn't so much about which one you chose, but sort of operating in a way now that provides options in the future. And I think a lot about that. I think it's good advice. I've shared it with my kids.
Volunteering, community service, being part of the community, that was behavior that was modeled all the way through, and all the way through our lives. And somebody at one point said to me, do you mind stuffing these envelopes? And I'm like, stuffing envelopes? I did that my whole life at the dining room table with my mom and dad for one cause or another. So it was just very much part of our upbringing.
The more connection, the more community activism, the more advocacy for all causes and people. Again, there's so many opportunities. It's a reminder, because as people transition into a retired life, it's going to create a gap, and we need others to step in, because we're all connected to this community in inextricable ways, and we all believe in the future of Pasadena.
Pasadena is what it is thanks to the community that has helped build it up through the years.
For sure.
It's all about continuing my parents' legacy and their generation of the huge commitment to the community, so that we can all go forward together in the same way.
From my point of view, if Pasadena is remembered during my service as mayor as a community that embraced everyone and attempted to provide a positive experience living here, that would be a legacy that I would be proud of, that Pasadena has a tradition of mutual support, cooperation, having all the members of the community participate in what the community has to offer.
He's not interested in the attention. He was interested in bringing people together, leading from behind, talking to everybody, making sure everyone's been heard, considering all the angles, and then trying to find ways forward that are as good as they can be for as many people as they can be.
He was all about listening, gathering his data, researching, and then, as Joseph said, bringing things together and bringing the community together and trying to find a medium where everybody, or as many people as possible, could be happy. But it was about listening first and then taking action. And I think that's an important lesson for all of us.
The importance of working together, of being concerned about the well-being of the community, is fundamental to Pasadena's success in the future. And I'm hoping that the traditions that have existed of community engagement, discussion of complicated issues, of public meetings and cooperation, I hope those traditions continue to be a part of this great community.